Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin in Nigeria, where President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday flew to Borno from Ethiopia to console the state and its people over the carnage in Auno, a village in the state where suspected Boko Haram members killed no fewer than 30 people on Sunday night. During the visit, the president accused community leaders of knowing about protracted attacks by Boko Haram and other terrorist groups. He is quoted as saying, "This Boko Haram, or whatever they are, cannot come up to Maiduguri or environs without the local leadership knowing, because traditionally, the local leadership is in charge of security in their own respective areas. So with my understanding of our culture, I wonder how Boko Haram survives up till now," end quote. He called on the people to cooperate with the military and other security agencies to crush all terror cartels in the northeast, saying the federal government will take more proactive and decisive measures to end Boko Haram attacks. He listed intelligence sharing and synergy between law enforcement agencies and the civil populace as being critical to winning the war against terrorism. However, just a few hours after the president left Maiduguri, Boko Haram made a push for the troubled town, but the military foiled the push of the insurgents into Maiduguri as they engaged them in a shootout. So there's President Buhari. It has to be noted and commended that he flew to Borno. He's been criticized heavily previously for not making these personal visits to identify and personally console people, and that kind of leadership is required. Although he may be, doubting that course of action because he was booed in that town, which is most uncharacteristic and just shows the level of anger, upset, and fear in that environment. But there's that comment that he made. He accused the local leadership directly, which the Chief of Army Staff also told us when we interviewed him the other day, that he made a comment. He said that what happened in Auno, the Boko Haram insurgents came out, but some came out of the community. So that is quite an indictment that the people know who these people are. And he also alluded, this is the Chief of Army Staff, or he mentioned the fact that this indoctrination has been going on for decades. So it really has taken hold, such that people are harming their neighbors and seeing nothing wrong with it, such that people are betraying their own communities by allying with Boko Haram. So it's a very deep, such a deeply entrenched problem.
Yeah.
Well, a number of issues here. One, I think it's commendable that the president chose to visit Borno State a few days after the report about, we had a report that there was an attack on a community just a few miles away from Maiduguri on Sunday. That is the Auno village, where 30 persons were killed, many women and children were abducted, 18 vehicles were set ablaze, and all through, the attack, which began at 9:30 p.m. in the evening, nobody came to the rescue of the people of Auno. Now, the president had been away for about 5 days in Ethiopia to attend the 33rd session of the African Heads of State at the African Union Summit, and he decided to go straight from Addis Ababa to Maiduguri. That in itself, on the face of it, will be an expression of sympathy, of compassion, of responsiveness on the side of the government of Nigeria, and particularly by the president of Nigeria. One of the major criticisms of the president in the past had been that when disaster occurs in any part of the country, he doesn't seem to show enough concern. So we've seen in this case a departure. So that is good. But the question to now ask is, who exactly did the president visit? What exactly was the original purpose of that visit to Borno State, to Maiduguri? Now, persons have raised these questions because what we're told is that the president got to Maiduguri, where he was received at the airport by the governor and the minister in charge of humanitarian issues, disaster, and social development. And from the airport, he went straight to visit the Shehu of Borno, where he made the statements that have been quoted in the newspapers. And that from there, he went to the presidential lodge. And from the presidential lodge, after lunch and prayers, he went straight back to the airport and returned to Abuja. Now, it is unfortunate if that report is correct, that the president did not consider it necessary to visit the people of Auno. It was not the Shehu of Borno that was attacked. It was not members of the Shehu of Borno's family that were abducted. It was not the vehicles of the Shehu of Borno that were set ablaze. These were, things that affected the people of Auno directly. And Auno was just a few miles out of Maiduguri. The visit will have made better impact, greater impact, will have served a better purpose if the president had chosen to go to the village, the scene of the attack itself, to meet with the people and commiserate with them and reassure them. Or if he had chosen to go to the hospital to visit the injured persons. I'm sure that the state government will have information, about, where the injured were taken to. Now, another point is about the president being booed by the people. Well, you can explain that 30 persons having been killed, carnage in Auno village, that the people will naturally respond emotionally. The thing was still very fresh. I do not consider the booing of the president, although the accounts vary. Some say that it was well received. Some say it was booed. Whatever it was, well, the people have every reason to be emotional. I do not, on the surface of it, consider that as a rejection of the president, considering the fact that in the 2019 general elections, President Buhari and the APC won 85% of the votes in Borno State alone. In fact, they got the largest margin of votes in Borno State than he got from any other part of the country. But I think that the president, if indeed it is true that he was booed, that the people were saying, Bamasu, Bamayi, we don't want, we don't agree. If indeed that is true, and I guess there is video evidence, he should take special notice of it, of that his administration still needs to do a lot more to continue to reassure the people, either they are in Borno State or any other part of the country. And of course, he made the point that he remains committed to defeating Boko Haram, but that he also needs the support and the cooperation of the people of Borno and the people in other parts of the country. The big takeaway for me is that when the president visits, he should visit and identify directly with the victims, not with a traditional ruler.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not. He's alleging that their leaders in the communities know about it. Yeah. Would you visit that village if that was you? Is that not a security risk?
Well, that is for the, the security people to determine. He was accompanied.
Yeah, but how are you sure that he was not advised otherwise?
Well, the president will not visit a place without security advice.
Exactly, which might be why he didn't go there.
No, but it's also the duty, the responsibility, of the security agencies to protect the president.
But what if they can't?
To clear the ground. No, the kind of security, I know, I've worked in the presidency before.
But do you know about this particular situation?
The kind of security that is around the president of Nigeria, it will be very strange for a group of ragtag bandits to attack the president of Nigeria on the ground. But, of course, you will recall that after the president left, in one of the villages, there was an attack, but the military, they were able to repel the attack because, and I guess they were able to do that effectively because they were on the ground. When the commander-in-chief visits a place, every step will have been taken to make sure that there's no breach. Why
he stopped short of going to Auno. I don't think it's...
But couldn't he have gone to the hospitals?
But was anybody injured?
There were injured persons.
Because I never read that. I read that they were abducted and murdered.
No, persons were injured.
I also think that what's important here is the fact that both the president and the chief of army staff have both made a very similar point, which is about what you stated at the beginning, Tundu, about the fact that local leaders within the community know that there are people who are indoctrinated to switch at any second, or people who are already switched, living in those communities that can attack at any time. Because this then goes back to the role of local leaders and how we can also best protect ourselves in smaller communities, because that's a very dangerous situation and it's stark. It really is. But I will say that considering the fact that the president is known for not going on visits when things like this happen, it does look good and it was good optics. But the background information, I guess we don't know yet.
When the president visits a place, particularly where there has been a problem, it's a show of confidence. It's a show.
But is that confidence does not exist, then you get killed for what?
Let's go on a very quick break.
Let's go on a short break now. We'll be back.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now joining us is Rotus Odiri with Business News. Rotus, what do you have for us?
Good morning.
Yeah, so there's a number of things happening in business right now. Yesterday, there was a primary market auction, the Nigerian Treasury bill auction. The rates, as we can see on our screen, they're pretty low. 91-day, 3%, 182-day, 4%, 364-day, 6.5%.
What?
Yeah, very low, very, very low. And if you compare that to inflation at 11.9%, it looks like, based on the demand, which is the subscriptions there, investors are still willing to take a negative interest rate than invest in more risky securities like the stock market. So it is what it is as of right now with the low rates, low rate environment.
But for the rates to be this low, do you really think this is totally down to market forces?
Well, it's really the CBN that's caused this because they pushed out PFAs. They pushed out, that's the pension fund administrators. They pushed out a number of individuals that you and I can't invest at OMO auctions. So you have to, all your demand has to now go elsewhere. And so the higher the demand is, the lower the rates are, which is what we're seeing. I mean, look at those subscription rates. 4 billion was offered for a 91-day, and the subscription was 29 billion. 10 billion was offered for 182, 52 billion was subscribed, and then the 364, 140 billion was offered, 205 billion went after that. So there's still a heavy demand because investors pretty much don't have more where else to go, you know. Of course, they're being encouraged to go to the stock market, but because of the risks that are there, they're saying, nah, we'll just stick with the current rates that we're seeing. What else? Bloomberg had a survey where they asked 19 investors if they think, well, three things. One, do they think the Naira is overvalued? Two, do they think that devaluation is going to happen this year or the next? And three, no, the two, do they think devaluation is going to happen? Three, when do they think it will happen? And so with the investors that they talked to, about 19 of them, about 10 or so said that the Naira is overvalued by 10%. Right now we're at 365. If a 10% devaluation or overvalued Naira will take us to 400 Naira per dollar. About 5 or so of them said that it was overvalued by 20%, which would take it to 450 Naira per dollar. As far as when they think the devaluation is going to happen, if a majority of them think it's going to happen in 2021. Some of them think it's going to happen this year, and then some think it'll happen between 2022, 2023. The thing is, you've all talked about the coronavirus. It has affected oil prices. We're looking at our reserves right now. They've dropped about 17% since June of last year to about 37 billion right now, from about a high of 45. The central bank is running out of firepower to be able to defend the Naira. But President Buhari has said that keeping the Naira where it is I think it's part of his administration and part of his mandate in order to try and protect investors. So we'll see how far. I don't think the central bank can hold on much longer, but we'll see how much longer they can keep this up. And then in aviations, the Harmattan weather has caused a number of flights to be delayed. In fact, some of them not even delayed. Some have diverted and not even landed in Lagos. They've gone to Accra and other neighboring nations because of the poor visibility. Sandstorm, literally. Yeah. The thing is, though, our aviation authorities are supposed to have invested in technology that allows them something called an ILS.
Yeah, I think it's instrument landing system.
Thank you, instrument landing system, which is supposed to be up to date and allow most of these planes to land. But I think it was about $6 million or so that was invested.
$8.5 million.
8.5. So it's affecting a lot of people who've gone overseas to bring, Valentine's Day is tomorrow.
Wait, rewind. We spent $8.5 million investing in instrument landing systems, and this is the situation that we're still in.
They said
I just wanted the viewers to be very, very, very clear on that.
They said it hasn't been calibrated properly or something.
Money down the drain.
Yeah, well, I mean, the systems are there, just haven't been calibrated properly. So Val's Day is tomorrow. People have, flown overseas to bring stuff in they want to sell. They've been delayed. People that want to go on vacation,
people
travel out.
People want to come and see their honeys.
Exactly, it's been affected.
At the moment, flights have been diverted to Accra and to other airports. Other airports in Nigeria that still have the instrument landing system 2. You can still land there. And the whole idea is to be able, for aircraft to be able to land even when there is low visibility.
Right.
The objective of getting the ILS-3 for Murtala Mohammed Airport, Lagos, was to achieve the same objective, to make it easier for aircraft to land, when there's low visibility. But the question we should ask is, what stopped the proper calibration of that purchase? And here we're confronted again with the crisis of the failure of government agencies and ministries, and particularly, the negligence of state officials. And I think it's something that should be probed. It's something that should be investigated. As for the issue with treasury bills and the low yield environment that we now have, some analysts have said that this is a direct fallout of the decision of the policy by the CBN in October last year to shut out corporates and individuals out of the OMO, auction. Now, the OMO gives you a high yield, but now it's been restricted to foreign investors and to banks. Now, the effect of that, of course, is that all the pension funds, mutual funds, individuals, who were accused of seeing it as freebies, have had to move to treasury bills. And with the maturation of OMO, bills, then you see a glut. And that affects, because there is high demand for, treasury bills, then of course the rate will go down. From about 12.54 now to about 2.54. Right. And then of course the devaluation thing, some people are saying that, well, inevitably it will happen. Right. It's a question of when, because oil prices are going down. As at the last check, it was about $55, even below the benchmark for budget 2020. 57. And then our reserves, as you have pointed out, have also dropped. And if the reserves go as low as $30 billion, then, of course, you have no option but to allow the naira to fall. And that would be unfortunate indeed, because one of the major, targets of both the CBN and the administration has been to keep the forest, stable, and, to make our reserves healthy and to ensure that, the economy is kept. And since 2017, the naira has been between 360 to 365. Right. Now, if we now face a situation whereby we now go to either 400, the 10% that you talked about, or 450, the 20% that you talked about, then that would be calamitous, in terms of the implications for inflation, for purchasing power parity, and the entire economy.
Heavy stuff.
Thanks, Rotus.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rotus. Thank you.
We'll take a short break now and we'll be back with sports headlines. Stay with us.
A state of industrial development.
Actually have a...
So this is a lead in Chile.
No matter how much they give you as a palliative,
You're watching Arise News.
we're also on the grid. And let's get to our video we want to soccer meaning.
And it's not funny. Yes, people may laugh.
Can I just enable the white to read and get that former president?
The sound system.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now is Aaron Akirijala with sports headlines. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, Tundu.
Good morning,
Lena.
Aaron.
Good morning.
Good morning. And yeah, some good news. We've been talking about the Super Eagles and some settings, kind of stability as a build-up to the Nations Cup qualifiers and the World Cup qualifiers. And yesterday, the news actually broke, and it's been all over the internet. Celebrations actually in the air that former captain of the Super Eagles, Joseph Onari-Robo, has become the new assistant coach to Genetrol. And at the moment, he will actually be the man side by side with the coach of the national team to help them through those stormy waters. Joseph Yobo needs no introduction. Nigerian captain, he's the most capped player in the history of the Super Eagles, having played 101 times for the Super Eagles. Started his career back in 2001 in the Nations Cup qualifier. I mean, the World Cup qualifier against Zambia, and he went on to amass several caps, became captain back in 2010, went to lead them to the Nations Cup in 2013 in South Africa, which he actually lifted. And right now, he's bringing all that experience from club level, started having played for Standard Liège, Olympique Marseille, played for Everton, played for Fenerbahce before he actually retired in 2014. So he's bringing all that into the mix. And he joins the long list of ex-Super Eagles players, the likes of Daniel Omokachi, the late Stephen Keshi, and also following the trend of an ex-captain also becoming an assistant coach of the Super Eagles, talking about Stephen Keshi became an assistant coach of the Super Eagles under several managers before finally, Shaibu Amodu, very prominent amongst them, before actually ascending to become the Super Eagles manager at some point. So people are beginning to say maybe this might just be the future coach of the Super Eagles.
Well, this is great news.
Yes, congratulations.
Well, congratulations to him. Joseph Yobo, you know, the Everton superstar.
Yes.
You know, and one of the second most capped Nigerian international football player. I mean, played for Nigeria over 101 times.
Yeah.
Played for Everton over 250 games.
Yes.
So he's tested. And in his acceptance speech, he referred to his knowledge and his experience and the kind of leadership and inspiration that he can provide for the younger footballers who are in the Super Eagles. But the question that has been raised, and okay, before I go to the question, it's not unusual, as you have pointed out, that former players, you know, can become coaches. Even elsewhere, we have the example of Frank Lampard, Arteta. These were former players, and Eric Abidal, you know, who's director of sports
at Barcelona.
Yes, but the question is, does he have the qualification? Does he have the training? Does he have a coach badge? You know, and this has been the question that many have raised. And some have said, why not Emmanuel Amunike, who trained as a coach? You know, but is that an issue?
Amunike at this point is bigger than the assistant coach's job in Nigeria. Okay. Amunike has actually honed his skills, not just the junior level. He led Tanzania to the Nations Cup. Tanzania had not been to the Nations Cup in 30 years, and he led Tanzania to the Nations Cup. Right now, he's one of those few coaches who has tested international waters. He's actually coaching a club side in Egypt. So coming back to become an assistant coach is almost like demoting him. That's way below, way below his standard at the moment. We're hoping that he becomes the coach of the future.
Thank you, Aaron.
Let's see how he goes.
Thanks,